Hello. Hope you can see me. Let's bend it back a little bit. Okay. Greetings, aloha, namaste to all my friends, enemies, anybody. Okay, I'm trying this so that I don't have to hold the camera. I just wanted to share a couple of things which I haven't really shared with a lot of people. I've had a couple of near-death experiences in my life while surfing. Been surfed all over the world during my life and been in a lot of places alone where it was really big and hairy. And both the times that I had this experience, I was pushing my own laziness or stupidity, and it caused me trouble. But the one I want to tell you about today was on Maui, a little while after my divorce, and I was alone, staying there and surfing and doing permaculture and working as a woofer and really struggling, staying in my car sometimes, doing work trade for places to stay. And I was staying on this commune, and I was doing a work trade basically for a mosquito net and a plywood platform to sleep on out in the jungle. And I was really struggling, but I wasn't giving up. I was about 40, and now I'm 54, and or so it would appear. And so I went with my longboard, and that longboard that I had at the time, I used to be a shortboard surfer forever, and but not a gyro, like a soul surfer, tube rider, seeking perfection. And I took my longboard that my ex-wife had bought me as a 40th birthday present. So I was probably about 42. And I called the board Leilani, and it was a 9 foot three stringer, super green blank when they used to make these with a fiberglass, a stronger fiberglass finish and a stronger glass and a wood block tail. And it was a high performance Kalama model, which Jeff Timponi shaped for me. It was a Dave Kalama template. It's the best board I've ever had, bar none. And in my life surfing, all my life, I'd never broken a surfboard before. I had buckled one longboard, but I had never broken a board. And I lived out in the jungle about 15 minutes from my local break, Ho'okipa. And I used to like to surf middles at Ho'okipa. But Ho'okipa has 3 or 4 breaks. It has pavilions, middles, the point, and then next to Mama's. And so instead of surfing middles that day, when I got to the beach, I was with my friend Andrew that I worked with. Oh, actually, it's when I lived at Stevo's. So it was still the commune, but it was a different one, and I lived in a treehouse. And I had this Ford Explorer that got terrible gas mileage, and I didn't have a lot of money, and I only brought my longboard with me, and I should have brought my 7.3 step-up board, my minigun, because it was pretty big and stormy already, and it was getting bigger, but I didn't really spend the time to sit and watch the waves. I just got out, took my board, and paddled out at Pavilions, which is the right point, which is backside for me. And I usually don't surf at Pavilions because it gets crowded, but that day Middles was closing out, and um, I decided to paddle out at Pavilions because it's an easier paddle. You can paddle next to the rocks. And I got out there, and it was getting pretty big. It was already almost double overhead, and it wasn't clean. It was windy, and there were two swell directions. It was come from the west and the northwest, so it was lopsided, and the northwest was picking up really fast. And Ho'okipa has deep water outside of it. It's on the northeast shore of Hawaii and of Maui. It's a windsurfing mecca, but it's also a surfing mecca. And it's one of those places where, like Honolulu Bay, when a swell comes, there's no indicators. It just comes. It gets big all of a sudden. And I got out in the outside, and I was sitting there on my board waiting for a wave, and it was just big and messy, and I was just waiting. And I realized, well, I better go in. It's getting big out here, and I got the wrong equipment. I didn't want to break my board or get hurt. And a local kid on a shortboard paddled next to me, and he was laughing at me. What are you doing out here on that? Oh my God! And I kind of took offense. I was like, what? I know what I'm doing. Yeah, so all of a sudden, all the horns in the parking lot start honking, which means there's a big set of waves coming. And I look out, and there's just, as far as you can see, it's lines to the horizon, and like a 5 or 6 wave set was coming, and it was literally quadruple overhead. It had doubled in size on the next set. And I wasn't even nearly far enough out. So I start paddling as fast as I could. And I get over the first one, and it's super windy, and I jump over it. Boom! And the rain's falling down from the spray. And I get to the second one, and I barely make it. And by the third wave, there was no way I was going to make it. And on a longboard, you can't duck dive it through, especially if you weigh 150 pounds on a 9.3. And so right at the last second, I was at impact zone, right where the wave crashes into the water. And I let go of my board at the last second. I should have either grabbed it and pushed through, which probably would have tossed me backwards, or dove down sooner. Instead, I waited till the last second, and the wave broke right on my calves as I was jumping off the board, and it snapped my board in half immediately, and it left me with like a foot of my board attached to the leash. And normally, when you're in big surf, your board will pull you back up to the surface. It floats, and so if you're getting launched and ragdoll on the bottom, it will pull you up. So this wasn't the case because I only had a little piece with the fins in it. It was a 3-fin. That was it. It was just like a foot of foam, and so the waves kept coming, and that first wave ragdolled me. It put me in the whitewater, in the soup, and it just started spinning me around. And this is a reef break with a few patches of sand here and there. And the first wave, and I came up sort of at the last second, and the next one broke right on my head, and it was getting bigger and bigger. And like 3 or 4 waves just broke right on top of me. And by about the 4th or 5th one, it had pushed me so hard down, literally in like 25 feet of water. It was very deep. Pushed me all the way down, and I hit my head on the bottom as hard as I could, but it was sand. Thank God it was sand. So it didn't knock me out. It just kind of dazed me. I was seeing stars, and I almost lost my breath. I barely held my air, and I didn't know which way was up. I was just spinning like in a washer, just spinning, flipping and cartwheeling and turning, and I had no idea what was going on. And in that moment, and I realize this now, that it's the same with meditation or anything. In that moment, I let go to something larger than me. I realized I did not have the power to deal with the energy in the water that was swirling and pushing and moving me. It was a force larger than myself. And I just realized that's it. I have to quit. I have to give up. I'm going to die. And so I let go. I just let go of Eric. I let go of all of my history, all my dreams, all my aspirations, everything. I just said, that's it. I'm a goner. I didn't know which way was up. It was dark, foamy. I couldn't see. I'm known for opening my eyes under the water. I couldn't see. And in that instant, a really strange thing happened to me. All of a sudden, I was still consciousness. I could still think and see and feel and hear, but I wasn't in the water anymore. I was in this realm where it was all bubbles. I was like in some kind of liquid, but I was surrounded by bubbles. Everywhere you could see were these perfect bubbles. They were all the same size, and they were clear, a little bit iridescent, and they were everywhere. And I went, wow, what is this? What are these bubbles? And I was really curious. And at the time, I was studying the Course in Miracles. I've been a Christian Scientist in the beginning, and then the Infinite Way, and the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and Zen, and the Tao. But at the time, I was checking out the Course in Miracles, and I was really into it. I was really doing it. And failure of my marriage and everything. I was really trying. And so I decided in curiosity that I would check out one of these bubbles. And I went right up to it, and I put my face into the bubble. Just, about this much. So it was like past my ears. And all of a sudden, I realized that these bubbles were impressions. They were like eternal memories of really important decisions that we make in our life. Like life-changing things, like life-forming and guiding choices that we make, good or bad. And what it was I had a memory of when I was 4 years old, and I've written about this. I don't go into the details, but we'll just say It smelled like how things smell when you're 4. It looked how things look when you're 4. When you're that young and innocent, colors are different and smells are different. It's more innocent and genuine and overpowering, and it's a bigger part of you. You haven't developed your ego so much. And I was reliving the experience just like it was happening again, but I saw myself and I could see the lesson of the experience and the choice I had made in that moment as a 4 years old to make a grievance against the world because the way I had been treated in that instant by my mother, who was troubled, and I had chose never to trust her, to be angry, and there was good reason for it. We won't go into that now, but is there ever a good reason for a grievance? No. And the Course in the Miracles is about, do you want your grievances or do you want the truth? Do you want peace or do you want your way? And we have to let go of our grievances so that the miracle will come. So I had my face in the bubble and I was having this experience, and it was just as real as this right here. Even more so, it was like more clear, and there was this light in this liquid area that was like there was this sort of surrounding uh, neutral light. And I pulled my face back out of the bubble, and when I did, all of a sudden I was back in my body, and I was still ragdolling under the water, but I was coming up to the surface. And so, boom, I broke the surface and, trying to breathe. And there's still just huge waves everywhere. And I'm only about halfway into the shore. And I've been a body surfer all my life. I lived at the Wedge and Sandy Beach when I was a kid. So I decided that since I didn't have a surfboard, I just had a piece attached to my leash. I'd put my arms back and do the ultimate way to get in and just skim in. And I did. And it took all my energy. I literally spent every drop of energy I had getting in. I barely dragged myself up on the shore. And I was so tired, and some kids yelling at me, go get the other part of your board. It's litter. Some really ugly people sometimes. But the reason I tell you this story is a little while later, I really sat and contemplated this experience and applied it to what I was learning in the course at the time, and it really made sense to me why that was shown to me. I didn't go through the light or anything because it was quick and it was showing me something I needed to know for where I was in my life, and definitely wasn't over yet. And I knew that when I got to the shore, even though I was so tired, I realized I did want to be there laying in the sand. I did want to live. And I was so heartbroken about my surfboard because just a few days later, they closed Clark Foam. You couldn't get that kind of blank to make the board anymore. And for years, they got very expensive, and the whole industry had to change to epoxy and new foam. So, anyway, that was one. I had another one at Sunset when I was younger, in my 20s, on Oahu. But, the deeper experience here is that consciousness is the substance of all form, and consciousness is our true identity. And it's impersonal, it's universal, but it's teaching itself always. And I think that, since that experience, these bubbles are there as lessons, as choices. And I think that we should just let all the bubbles burst and not hold on to them, and just keep the treasure that we lay up in heaven in our heart and soul and mind from the truth that we realize and actualize and spiritually discern in our lives. And, I haven't said this much on any of these videos on the channel yet, but I'm a poet, and I'm a developing voice that's been writing since I was very young. And I have all my writing since I was 16. Now I'm 54, like I said. I have suitcases and boxes full of journals and blank pages that I wrote, and stories and children's books, all kinds of things. And I'm going to start sharing some of those on these videos as soon as I figure out how to set up the camera in a good place where I can give you a good delivery and not such raw, unedited videos as these are. But the reason I'm doing these raw, unedited videos is to share an honest and genuine experience with others, so that, because there are no others, I am my brother and sister, one consciousness, one I am. And so, we struggle. Life can be good or bad, but that's still an appearance. And I just want to use these tools that have been given to me to share whatever I can share now. Today is June 20th, 2019. Tomorrow is the solstice, the longest day of the year. And I'm a worker of the light. and I have my inner console tuned to the web of light, and it never logs out. And I'm working more and more and more and more just to sit still and be with that. And states and stages, right? I'm dealing with my teeth falling out again. That happened when I was a little kid, and these are false ones falling out. But see, you deal, and judge not by appearances, resist not evil. We know the scriptures. It's not easy. What is it saying? The truth is simple, but it's not easy. And yeah, but if we practice and practice and practice, practice makes perfect. Perfect makes practice. All is one. So, I is we, I is thee, and I'm very grateful that if you listen to this, that you took the time. Too many people discount this experience and the experiences they have on the mystical side of things, but really, it's so beautiful and so clean and pure and guilt-free and unconditioned. Even in that bubble realm, it was showing me that the bubbles were little conditions and experiences that were chosen. They're choices. It's not a conditioned realm. That's why they're in bubbles. And it's kind of like the earth realm. We're in this bubble here, and we're learning. And if we want to be one with the whole, then the bubble's got to go. So anyway, that's my story, and it's for the glory of God, which can't be said or thought, but can be experienced. And the truth is true, and the law is the law, and the Lord is the Lord, and one is one, infinite one. Yes, I.